This video is brought to you by Voting Access for All Coalition. We represent a number of organizations in our county and state. We want to ensure that persons in pretrial situations, folks about to be released from jail and prison, and their families have the opportunity and knowledge they need to exercise their right to vote in all elections. You'll note throughout these videos there is this great artwork with these really powerful messages, and they're all made by Washtenaw high school students as part of the League of Women Voters poster contest.
I'm Cozine Welch, Executive Director of A Brighter Way, a nonprofit here in Washtenaw County that focuses on providing mentorship and reentry wraparound services to folks who return from prisons and jails in Washtenaw County. And I think the most relevant part about my story as it relates to voting is the fact that I was gone for 20 years while incarcerated. And while there's a lot of things that seem to make that most relevant, the reason why is because for 20 years, that means no one heard me. That means when people were voting, my voice wasn't being heard. And for me, that's why it's really important to vote, because we talk about making changes in the perspective of having a movement. If all those movements don't get together to have a singular force of movement when it comes to voting, we're just a bunch of disparate voices grumbling, not really getting anything done. And I think that when it comes to having a properly, commonly and not aligned voting goal, like that's how you institute real change.
I'm Jerry. I'm a returning citizen to our community. I spent 20 years in prison. I was released in March. One of the experiences that I had while in prison was I had the ability to watch television and watch elected officials who should but by no means have ever been elected make decisions that affected myself, my community, my family, and my friends. When I got released in March, the greatest thing that happened was I regained my right to vote. I have now the right to make my voice heard. It's very important for me to have a voice to make a say on who makes the decisions in my community. And I would like to share with you today some of my thoughts about why it's important for you, your family and friends, and all of us to get together and make our voice heard through the voting process that we have a right to do. Even if you don't have the right to vote, if you're sitting in prison or in a county jail, the thing is that your family can, your friends can, and their voice is as important as ours. This is the way we choose our leaders. As you sit in your cell, you look around and look at the people and the things that are being done to you and for you, and they're being done by people who don't know you. They're done by people who really probably, for most part, don't care. We and our families have to join together and make our voice heard together.
My name is Evie Jordan, and I did 2 years in Huron Valley. And when I got out, I went door to door to stress the fact that we're felons, that we can vote. And a lot of people didn't even know that. And they felt that since they was a felon on parole or probation, that they couldn't vote. But I brought it to their attention. And I went to my neighborhood, and I didn't go all over around the world. I just went to my neighborhood to inform my neighborhood that I knew there was a lot of felons in my neighborhood that they could vote, and I went door to door. And I also had a car, and the people that didn't have a ride, I would drive them up to our local voting polls to have them vote and register. We need to vote all three branches. We need to move seats. You need to, if you don't like your judge, go vote that judge down and get another judge. If you don't like your sheriff, your deputy, everybody, the mayor, everybody have terms. The Senate, they have terms too. And they've been there for 16 years. Nobody voted them out. So it's more power in numbers than sitting at home complaining about it. Go vote. They pulling the wool over your eyes thinking you can't, but you can. Your word needs to be heard.
I'm Daryl Woods. I am 48 years old. I spent 29 years in prison, or 28 years and 11 months incarcerated. When I went to prison, I was 18 years old. Never had the opportunity to vote in my life. I exercised my right to vote in the latest presidential primary, and it was very exciting. It was very empowering. And so I'm here to say that voting matters because it decides who's going to be the prosecutor. It decides who's going to be the judge. It decides who's going to be the mayor, the governor and the president of the United States. These offices are vitally important to the fabric of society. And so I'm excited today to say that it is very important to vote.
Register to vote. Your vote matters. When I was inside, I think about all those elections, all those chances to make change that were missed, but all the times I didn't engage in those conversations for whatever excuse I used, whether it was I didn't want to get in arguments over politics, or I didn't want to waste some of my 15-minute phone calls on some stuff like that. I didn't recognize how important it was to take those moments, because that was how I became able to have a voice when I was basically rendered voiceless. And not only was I able to have a voice in that, but my family were able to find their own voice. And I missed out on that. Had I been able to get my family aware of who they should vote for, what elections were important, how my non-voice could have transformed into 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 voices and 15 kind of increments of voting power. I think that's why it's most important when you're inside to be sure you do what you can to get this information out to your family and friends and to motivate them to vote. Help them find ways that are going to make voting easier, register an absentee, whatever it may be, it's possible. But recognize that though you're voiceless, this is the way your voice is heard. And in turn, you also strengthen bonds with your family and friends. You also get them more involved. You get them more aware. It really pays forward.
I had to educate my family members on the voting process. I had the opportunity while incarcerated to do a lot of studying and understanding what the civil rights movement was about, the Voting Rights Act was all about. And I found that many of my families didn't have that knowledge. And when I was able to teach them or encourage them and direct them towards that information, they felt compelled also to exercise their franchise and to vote.
One of the important parts of this election and voting is making it inclusive with our family and friends. For me in particular, when I was sitting in prison, incarcerated and unable to vote, it also hurt my family. I was away from them for 20 years. We didn't have as much contact as we wanted. And they were saddened because they felt that they couldn't do anything about my situation. Well, the reality is that their votes are important. Their votes can make a difference in every election. We have family members and we have friends. They have family members and they have friends. We have to get together and vote, because together our voice is really strong. We can make a difference in our community, our state, and our country.
I have the great pleasure to work with my children, my son and daughter, during my incarceration. And one of the things that I had the opportunity to do is to teach them about their right to vote. They didn't have any clue about it and didn't have any understanding, and they heavily relied upon their father to teach them. And one of the greatest things that I felt was that my children exercised their right to vote, and they did it in a thoughtful way because they wanted to vote for the people who they believed that was going to represent the interests of their incarcerated father. And so I was so honored to have my children to vote my interests as well as their interests, because my interest was their interest and their interest was my interest.
Another thing too, let's just be honest. When we're inside, we've got the one privilege we find is time. We may not have as much access to resources like we do when we come home, but we have some time, and that time we can use to find out information that maybe our family members can't find out. We've got the privilege of having a little bit of extra time that maybe we could devote and develop in a way to kind of communicate to our friends and family who are the best people aligned with our interests at the local level. To give them a cheat sheet, if you will. I mean, everyone needs help. It's a communal thing. How else do you build community without helping one another? To me, that's why it's really important for folks inside to reach out to those friends and family members, because that's how you multiply and magnify your voice.